157 people killed when an Ethiopian Airlines 737 crashed just after takeoff. 18 Canadians are among the dead, including a Carleton University professor, a mother and daughter from Edmonton, a UN worker, and a young environmentalist. And this afternoon, we learned the Canadian death toll also includes a family from Brampton, Ontario. The CBC's Cass Rusey has more on some of the victims, the investigation, and Canada's response.
I now invite all representatives to stand and observe a minute of silence in honour of the victims.
At UN headquarters in New York today, a moment of silence for the 157 people killed in the Ethiopian Airlines crash. 21 of the victims were members of the United Nations.
Our colleagues were women and men, junior professionals and seasoned officials, hailing from all corners of the globe.
18 Canadians were killed when the plane crashed just 6 minutes after takeoff. Among them, Ottawa native Jessica Haiba, who worked for the UN and recently was reassigned to Somalia's capital. Today, one of her closest friends says Haiba was excited to get back to work.
Jessie is a brave person. She's a superhero in herself. She's an incredible mother. She loved very deeply. She loved her family. She loved her friends. She is a humanitarian at heart, and both the United Nations and Canada have lost one of their best humanitarians.
At the crash site, heavy machinery was brought in to dig out pieces of the wreckage, while searchers continue to recover bodies. It's still not known what caused the plane to go down in clear weather, but with the recovery of 2 black boxes, officials hope to get some clues.
The flight data recorder is going to show us the flight path, the way that the pilots were manually controlling the aircraft with as far as the flight controls and how they were trying to, I'm sure, prevent this from happening once it became evident the aircraft was descending rapidly.
Both Air Canada and WestJet say they remain confident in the Boeing plane. Still, the Air Canada Pilots Association is calling on Ottawa to take proactive action to ensure the safety of Canadians. But late this afternoon, Transport Minister Mark Garneau says, until investigators determine the cause of the crash, the Canadian fleet of Boeing planes won't be grounded. Cass Rusey, CBC News, Toronto.
As I mentioned, 18 Canadians were killed in yesterday's crash, and tonight we are learning more about them. The CBC's Mira Baines has been following that part of the story and joins me now. Mira, among the victims are the members of one Ontario family.
That's right, Carol. Family and friends are mourning the loss of the crash victims today. Meanwhile, others are just finding out and getting word about who these victims are. We have learned that members of the same family, 6 members of the same family were killed in the crash. A family from Brampton that's just outside of Ontario. Parents, grandparents, and 2 girls, Anuksha Dixit and Ashka Dixit, died in the crash. The girls were 13 and 14 years old. Their music teacher explained how difficult it was to deal with the news.
When I was telling them, I was like, and my daughter was like, what happened? I said, they are no more. And literally my daughter, my wife, everybody started crying loudly, and it was difficult for me to handle them too. Very, very shocking, very shocking.
The Peel School District issued a tweet and confirmed the news earlier today. I'm just going to read that tweet. We mourn for families and friends of the 139 people who lost their lives in the Ethiopian Airlines crash, including 2 Peel School students and their parents. And the school board goes on to say the tragedy brought great sadness. The city of Brampton says it will fly flags at half-mast as a sign of collective mourning in the city in light of this loss.
What are you hearing about the other victims?
Well, among the 12 Canadians killed, there's humanitarians, environmentalists, aid workers, as well as an Edmonton mother and her daughter. One of the victims is Angela Rayhorn. She's a graduate from Dalhousie University. The Canadian Wildlife Federation says she was on her way to participate in a UN Environmental Assembly in Nairobi. Among the victims is also Carleton University professor Pius Adesanmi. Here's what a friend had to say about his loss.
We feel like, our lives have been bottomed out because Pius was so passionate about the African continent. We feel this is just too much too soon because he had started very many commendable projects on the continent. For us, this is such a big, big loss.
Here in British Columbia, friends and colleagues are also mourning the loss of Micah Messent. He's from BC and he's been lauded for his work in protecting the world's oceans. And just this hour, we learned about Edmonton activist. He was also on that flight, Darcy Bellinger. He was traveling for the UN Environmental Assembly. Carol?
Mira, thank you so much.